Welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching or listening to this deep dive. What if the most dangerous part of the Iran-US standoff isn't happening in the air or on the surface, but deep underwater? While the world watches aircraft carriers and headlines, Iran says it has built underwater missile tunnels capable of striking far beyond the Gulf and warning the United States that the Strait of Hormuz may not stay safe. Are these tunnels a real game changer or strategic signaling? Before we break it all down, hit like, subscribe, and share this video if you follow global security and geopolitics. And most importantly, drop your opinion in the comments. Is this a real red line or just another warning the world will ignore? I want to know what you think. Let's get into it. So we have a massive topic on our hands today. We're unpacking a whole stack of sources about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC.
Right.
And a series of these new threats and unveilings that really shift the focus from the skies down to the ocean floor. We're talking about, what do they call them? Underwater missile cities.
It's a dense and, frankly, a volatile mix. We're looking at a pretty fundamental shift in military posture in the region.
How so?
Well, it's not just about showing off weapons anymore. This
Yeah.
is about geography, it's about survivability, and it's a very specific message being sent to, well, the entire global economy.
Right. Okay, so to understand that message, let's start with the hardware. The source material really kicks off with footage from Iranian state television.
And it features Alireza Tangsiri, the commander of the IRGC Navy.
And the setting for this footage is key, right? This isn't some parade ground.
No, not at all. He's shown inside what the sources are calling extensive submarine missile facilities.
The visuals are, they're almost sci-fi. You see these rows of rockets all prepped for launch deep underground or, I guess, beneath the sea.
He explicitly claims it's a wide network of these tunnels.
Okay, let's pause on that. Why go through the massive engineering headache of building missile silos underwater?
It really just boils down to one word: survivability.
Survivability.
Yeah. In an age of satellite surveillance, trying to hide something on the surface it's incredibly difficult. If you have a missile truck on a highway or a standard base, an adversary like the United States can track it.
And presumably strike it before it ever fires.
Exactly. But if you bury your launch capability in tunnels along the coast or even under the seabed, you create a huge anti-access problem.
So it's about making them hard to find and hard to hit.
That's the core of it. Tangsiri says these tunnels were made specifically to confront U.S. vessels in the Gulf and the Sea of Oman. It's a way of saying, we can hit you, but you can't easily hit us back.
It's creating a denial of area.
Exactly. And looking at the specs they released, this threat isn't just local. Tangsiri mentions having hundreds of cruise missiles in these tunnels.
And the range he claimed was significant. He said they exceed 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah, let's unpack that number.
Okay, so 1,000 kilometers is what, about 621 miles. If you draw a circle with that radius from the Iranian coast, what are we looking at?
You're looking at a circle that covers the entire Persian Gulf, obviously, but it goes so much further. It reaches well into the Arabian Sea.
So it covers all the major logistical hubs and bases the U.S. uses.
Everything: Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE. It effectively means that U.S. ships aren't safe just by staying out of the narrow strait. They're threatened deep in the ocean.
The sources also highlight this one specific weapon, the Qatar 380L. Tangsiri really made a point of showcasing this one.
Yes, manufactured by the IRGC Navy itself.
And beyond the range, the big selling point here was its smart guidance. He claims it can track targets until impact. Is that really a big deal? Don't most modern missiles do that?
It is a pretty significant distinction. Older anti-ship missiles might fly to a general area using radar, and they can be fooled by countermeasures.
You mean like chaff? Those clouds of metal strips?
Right, things like chaff that confuse radar. But when he emphasizes smart guidance and tracking until impact, he's implying advanced seekers, maybe optical, maybe infrared imaging that can distinguish the specific heat signature or, the shape of a warship versus some decoy.
So he's basically telling the U.S. Navy, we see you, we can lock on, and even if you turn or pop decoys, this thing is still coming for you.
Precisely. It's a claim of technological maturity. And he adds that their capabilities are constantly developing. They're prepared to confront threats at any level and in any geography.
That last part, any geography, that feels like a signal. They're not just a coastal defense force anymore.
No, they're projecting power outward.
Which brings us to the most critical piece of geography in this whole thing, the choke point. The Strait of Hormuz.
The world's energy jugular, no question.
The numbers in the source material really drive this home. Over 21 million barrels of oil pass through that strait every single day.
And to put that into perspective for you, that's about 37% of all global maritime oil traffic.
37%.
And roughly 1/5 of the entire world's oil consumption.
Wow. 1 in every 5 barrels. So if you're driving a car or buying something that was shipped on a truck, there's a good chance the fuel for that came right through this tiny strip of water.
Which is exactly why Iran focuses on it. It's their greatest point of leverage. If they can credibly threaten to close or just disrupt that strait, they can hold the global economy hostage.
And the rhetoric we're seeing from Mohammad Akbarzada, he's the political deputy of the IRGC naval forces, it suggests they think they have that control.
Oh, he's not subtle about it. He claims Iran exercises complete dominance over the strait.
And he breaks that down into 3 domains, right?
Yes, air, surface, and subsurface.
The subsurface part, obviously, that links back to these tunnels we were just talking about.
Right.
But the dominance claim also gets into intelligence. Akbarzada says they get real-time intel from the sky, the surface, and under the water.
That's a claim of what you'd call total battlefield awareness. He's telling the world, flat out, that nothing moves through the Strait of Hormuz without them knowing about it.
He even says they can track vessels under different flags using modern tech.
Right. So the implication is you can't sneak through. You can't just fly a Liberian flag or turn off your transponder and hope they won't notice.
And then comes the ultimatum. The source quotes him saying the security of the strait is dependent on decisions taken in Tehran.
That phrasing is so deliberate. It is a direct rejection of the international norm of freedom of navigation. The U.S. and most of the world sees the strait as an international waterway.
Open to all.
Right.
Right.
But Akbarzadeh is saying, no, this water is safe only because we allow it to be safe.
And he draws a very clear red line. He says the strait will not stay safe if Iran is attacked.
It's classic deterrence. He's linking the safety of those 21 million barrels of oil directly to the survival of the Iranian regime. He's saying, if you strike us, the lights go out for the global economy.
It's a high-stakes poker game. But what feels different this time is that the threat isn't just pointing at the U.S., it's also pointing sideways at Iran's neighbors.
Yes, and this is where the geopolitics gets very messy for countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE.
The source details a specific warning to those states. Akbarzada says they're considered friendly unless, and it's a huge unless.
Unless their airspace, their land, or their territorial waters are used for an attack on Iran. They effectively become hostile targets themselves.
Okay, let's play that out. If I'm a Gulf state and I'm hosting a major U.S. airbase, like Al Udeid in Qatar, and a U.S. bomber takes off from my runway to hit an Iranian target, Iran is saying, I am now just as guilty as the pilot of that bomber.
Exactly. You become a co-belligerent. And that puts those host nations in an excruciating position. They rely on the U.S. for their security, but now hosting the U.S. quite literally paints a target on their backs.
This ties into that broader philosophy from Mohammad Mokbar, an advisor to the supreme leader. He outlines what sounds like a zero-sum security doctrine.
Yes, and that quote is quite something. Security and stability in the region are either for everyone or for no one.
Everyone or no one.
He's rejecting the idea of a partial peace. He's saying the Gulf monarchies can't sit safely in their glass towers while Iran is under threat. Security is indivisible. If Iran isn't safe, nobody gets to be safe.
And he demands the withdrawal of adventurous foreign forces, obviously talking about the U.S.
And he warns that any uncalculated step will result in dangerous shockwaves. And notice the scope he gives.
Affecting the global economy and the entire region. It always comes back to the oil.
Always. He is promising economic chaos as a direct retaliation strategy.
Which forces the neighbors to do some very hard math. Is the U.S. partnership worth the risk of economic ruin or even a physical attack?
And that is the wedge Iran is trying to drive. They want the neighbors to pressure the U.S. to back off.
Speaking of the U.S., let's look at their side of this. Because they aren't just watching these videos, they are moving a lot of heavy metal into the region.
Absolutely. The source confirms the arrival of the USS Abraham Lincoln with its whole carrier strike group. Warships, strike aircraft, the lot.
And the source also mentioned former President Trump announcing another naval fleet was on its way.
So you see this massive concentration of conventional firepower. An aircraft carrier is basically a floating city with an air force bigger than many countries have. It's the traditional American way of projecting power.
But there's an information war happening at the same time. The source says Iranian media was publishing footage simulating an attack on the USS Abraham Lincoln.
That's classic psychological warfare. You simulate the destruction of the enemy's flagship to boost your own morale and show the American giant is vulnerable.
And they didn't just stop with simulations. They also dug up history, right?
Yeah.
Mentioning the 2016 detention of those 10 U.S. sailors.
Oh, I remember that clearly. U.S. sailors drifted into Iranian waters and were detained. The images of them on their knees were broadcast everywhere.
So by bringing that up now...
They're trying to prick that bubble of American invincibility.
Yeah.
They're reminding the world and maybe the U.S., we have captured your sailors before. We have humiliated you before.
And while all this is happening, what's the official U.S. line? The State Department official quoted says, all options are on the table.
Standard diplomatic ambiguity. It means everything from more sanctions to actual airstrikes is still possible.
But the official also pivoted to a moral critique of the Iranian regime, accusing them of neglecting their own people to fund proxies, ballistic missiles, and nuclear research.
And that's the battle for the narrative. The U.S. is framing this not just as a security issue, but as a governance issue. The official says the Iranian people want and deserve a better life.
So you have two completely competing stories. Iran says, we're defending the region from imperialism. The U.S. says, you're a regime betraying your own people by wasting money on missiles.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most confusing part of this whole puzzle, the diplomacy. Because while all these threats are flying, phone calls are also being made.
It seems totally contradictory, doesn't it?
It really does.
On one hand, you have their foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, saying Iran rejects negotiations under threat.
Right. Diplomacy doesn't work with a gun to your head. That's the public stance for dignity and strength.
But at the exact same time, the sources list this flurry of phone calls. President Pezeshkian talking to the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman.
Ali Larijani from their Supreme National Security Council talking to Qatar's prime minister. Egypt is mediating.
So why talk to the very people you just threatened?
Well, it goes back to that wedge strategy we talked about. It's like a good cop, bad cop approach. But Iran is playing both roles itself.
How so?
The bad cop builds the missile tunnels and threatens the oil. The good cop calls the Saudi crown prince and says, look, we are brothers. Let's work this out.
The goal is to stop them from forming a united front against Iran.
Precisely. They want to make sure that if the U.S. does strike, the Arab states stay on the sidelines. They're trying to incentivize their neighbors to be the peacemakers. If Saudi Arabia is terrified of the bad cop, they'll work really hard with the good cop to de-escalate with Washington.
It's basically telling the neighbors, hold your American friends back or we all go down together. But there's one more factor here, an internal one. The sources briefly mention the domestic context inside Iran.
And you really can't ignore what's happening on the streets there.
The source notes an ongoing crackdown on protests. It cites the human rights activists' news agency, HRANA, alleging over 6,200 deaths.
And we have to be clear, as the source is, that the New Arab couldn't independently verify that number, but the allegation itself points to severe internal turmoil.
So if you're a government facing that kind of unrest at home, does picking a fight with the U.S. serve a purpose?
It's a classic theory called diversionary war. When things are bad domestically, you focus on a foreign enemy to rally the public around the flag.
So if everyone is looking at the USS Abraham Lincoln and the threat to the homeland, they might stop looking at the crackdown in their own neighborhoods.
It certainly raises the question, is all this missile footage just for external deterrence? Or is it also a message for the Iranian people? A message that says, we are strong, we are armed, and we are in control.
It's probably both.
It's likely both. Survival of the regime is the ultimate goal. That means deterring the U.S., but also maintaining control at home.
It's just a multi-layered game of survival. Okay, so to recap, we have a new network of underwater missile tunnels designed to survive a first strike. We have smart weapons, we have a clear threat to the world's energy supply.
And we have this zero-sum doctrine that tells the whole region, if we burn, you burn with us. All set against a backdrop of massive U.S. naval deployment and internal Iranian unrest.
So geostrategically, what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of the headlines?
It means the stakes have been raised significantly. We're moving from a period of, surface skirmishes to a potential conflict that involves area denial and full-on economic warfare. The Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a shipping lane, it's a kill switch for the global economy.
And for the region, Iran is presenting them with a binary choice.
A very stark choice. Regional cooperation on Iran's terms, or face the dangerous shockwaves of a conflict with the U.S.
And as Mukber warned, those shockwaves wouldn't stay local. They'd ripple out to gas pumps and grocery stores all around the world.
It just emphasizes that in a globalized world, a conflict in one narrow strait in the Middle East is, at the end of the day, everyone's problem.
That is a lot to process. But that's why we dig into these sources, to see the machinery behind all the threats. Before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. If Iran is willing to show the world these so-called secret underwater missile cities on state television, what have they built that they aren't showing us?
That's the question that keeps intelligence analysts and naval commanders awake at night.
Thank you so much for listening and for watching. We really appreciate you spending this time with us to navigate these deep waters. If you found this deep dive valuable, please check out the other podcasts in our network for more insights into the stories shaping our world. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you in the next one.